Oh, cool. Yeah. So, hi everyone. Yeah, it's Alex again. I'm back. This is week 2 of this online lecture series. I had a really great one with Darren, CEO of Trimit, and now I've got 2 amazing OGs who I've been following on Instagram for like the longest time, and we haven't actually connected before this. Like, probably I saw Dan at like the CCI launch event, and I didn't know it was Dan, and then we had a good conversation. But this was during the time when the recent pandemic outbreak was spreading, so nobody wants to be close to each other too much after a while. Yeah, I've got 2 amazing individuals who I have asked to come and speak and share about their journey, because they maybe don't have this traditional background of I went to study computer science, or I studied this blah blah blah, and having really interesting multidisciplinary skills, which I think is very important in this future that we're moving into. And and they do like really cool, amazing work. So I would like for my lovely 2 individuals who I brought here with me today, if they would like to just introduce themselves and just say who they are.
I'm Rifke, and this is. Wait, which way am I pointing? That way.
Oh God. Cool.
Oh, I'm Danny. Sorry.
No worries.
Sorry, I'm miles away.
Cool. And Rifke and Dan, or Danny. Okay, Danny. Rifke and Danny. Okay. Yeah. Who didn't pronounce your full names? Like you only gave the you need to, say your full names. Like and where do you lot originally both come from? I know you lot both come from the UK, but whereabouts?
Oh, so I'm from Liverpool, well, near Liverpool. I've been in London for about 7 years now, something like that, yeah. So yeah, Northern.
Hello. Yeah, I come from sort of near Bristol in the West Country, and I think I've been in London for about 4 years, I think.
Okay, cool. And on the day-to-day, what do you both do? What's the title that you've given to yourself and people ask you? So, Danny, what do you do?
Oh man, it honestly changes on a minute-by-minute basis. I think I put on like email signatures, creative direction, but what that actually entails is completely pie in the sky. Some days it's front-end development, some days it's art direction, some days it's, I don't know, record covers and traditional design. It all just kind of depends. Got a really short attention span creatively, so I have to switch it up pretty often or end up losing the plot. But yeah,
I think I'm kind of similar. I think we're both kind of similar in like the sort of mix of disciplines we work across, except I think Dan does like a little bit more kind of like straight up graphic design, whereas I don't do as much graphic design, but I like occasionally do a bit of illustration. But I've started kind of like mumbling what I am when someone asks, and then if I'm like really pushed, I'll be like, yeah, I'm a web developer. So yeah, I think that's kind of it. Web developer, I guess.
But it doesn't sound cool, innit? Web developer doesn't have that je ne sais quoi.
It's like it's like sometimes I don't think everyone knows what developer means either. It sounds kind of property developerish. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, I'm a coder, but then that sounds like I think I'm in the like film Hackers or something, and then I'm like, no, I mean a developer.
I feel like for me, I like to say things like, "No, I make things to pay my bills." What did I say the other day on my bio right now? I think it says, "I make things to pay my, I make things to to pay my bills. I think it's like I make things for a living to pay my bills. It's very crazy like that. Just
turning
because
coffee
of,
into code.
yeah,
Kissing at the intersection of art and technology.
and then on my email signature it has stuff like I make creative stuff with computers. But I felt like, you know,
that's nice.
yeah.
I take that. Do I have to pay you royalties?
No, you don't. I feel like it's cool. We can create it. And I feel like it was just, and I did that because of, I think I struggled to like define what I am as an individual, and I hope that people could just see it in like the work that like I create. That okay, it's something to do with code, it's something to do with design, it's something to do with the web, it's something to do with all these random interesting things, and there isn't any like label to it. And for me, I want to stay in that grey area. It's just that sometimes it's very hard to communicate that. But from what both of you two have said, you lot are mostly disciplinary creative individuals who have, you know, creative practice that encompasses graphic design, art direction, illustration, front-end development, and I don't know, what else? Is there anything else I've missed?
Yeah,
Back-end development? Okay, cool.
I've been blogging a bit recently. That's pretty wild. So maybe I'll just start calling myself a vlogger.
There you go.
Okay, cool.
There we are. That's it. Done.
And together you two are both creative partners. And you run, would you say it's a studio, or would you just say it's just like a creative partnership? What would you call what you both have going on right now?
We're aiming to launch it officially as a studio at some point in the near future, but for the past few months, I guess it must be about a year now, maybe a bit over. It's just been...
The near future keeps on getting pushed back a little bit. And I've had to stop saying on emails, like, oh yes, I recently started working with my mate Danny, and I'm like, oh, was it recently though, or was it a year ago? But yeah, we're DxR Zone, which kind of, it took a lot of writing different words on a whiteboard, and then eventually, like 2 days later, we were like, fuck it, we're just gonna like use the first initials of our names.
Yeah.
Zone
we went through everything. What was it going to be like? Target blank. It was like, like spider or something? Yeah. Event prevent default.
Prevent default.
So,
oh wow.
Would you say that naming isn't the best part of your lot's game? So maybe we don't hire you for naming.
Yeah, absolutely not.
What would you say?
Don't do that.
Unless you can wait 6 months.
Okay, cool. So you lot both have been working together for a year, and both of you two have really interesting like stories. Like, because from what I'm aware, both of you don't come from like a traditional like code background, and you know, like, you know, and I'm really interested in hearing initially first your individual stories in terms of how, like, what you studied, if you went to uni or whatever, and how you sort of found yourself into this intersection of art and technology and design, and you know, so I love to like hear that individual story that both of you two have. I don't know who would like to go first, but
after you,
yeah.
Oh mate. So I studied graphic design at Brighton University, and then there was a really short sort of like elective, extracurricular, whatever you want to call it, coding course using processing, which has now kind of become P5, I suppose. So it's kind of like the old version of P5 that lived offline and in its own app. And then from there, I spent kind of like a really long time like making the same thing over and over again, until I sort of got an internship sort of by fluke, and they were like, yeah, you can kind of stay on and we'll just teach you to code for web in exchange for doing our like admin stuff that we don't really want to do. So I did that through third year, like 1 day a week, and then left and was like, yeah, I'm a coder now, sick, like I'll kind of become freelance and it will be fine. And then some like mutual friends of me and Dan's were like, oh yeah, so you do a bit of code, do you want to come and work for us and sort of see how it goes? So I started working for them. It's a studio called Our Place, and then when I got there I was kind of like, oh wait, I'm not a coder, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing at all. So then a few years down the line I kind of like through like mainly trial and error and like really irate clients, I kind of worked out a little bit more what I was doing. And then it was kind of during that time that I suppose me and Dan met, and like we'd bump into each other at the pub and be like, oh my god, like I've learnt this thing when I've been coding, like have you tried it yet? And then a few years after that I went freelance and was looking for a studio space, and Danny was like, oh yeah, we've got a free space going in our and then we were like, why don't we just work together and then we can like deal with it together, that would be great. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, that's a really cool story. I'm not thinking about what pub you lot go to. Like,
oh, wait, what was
the White Horse in Peckham?
Sometimes the Rye.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
I swear there's like 3 pubs in southeast London that the whole creative industry seems to be in at any given moment.
Are both of you Peckham based?
Yeah, I'm up in Nunhead at the moment.
Okay, cool.
I've actually moved out of
Peckham,
which it's sad, but I'm in Greenwich now, so not too far, but I like to make a little trip back to Skians and the White Horse every now and again.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much. So, Danny, what's your story? Before you met at the pub, what's your?
I studied graphic arts and design at Leeds Met, or Leeds Beckett now. It was a kind of super like wide open course where it's kind of, as long as you can justify it, you can pass it off as kind of graphic design and work and do that kind of thing. And at the time I was just kind of like hell-bent on learning every bit of typography and typographic rules and like really boring stuff, and trying myself like just kind of, I don't know what the word is, as able to get a job in design as possible, and ended up like leaving uni not very good at design, moving to London, working in a pub for like 2 years, and then in those 2 years I was like, right, I need a website. Definitely haven't got the money to pay anyone to make a website, so I guess I'll just figure it out. And then I went through the motions, went through Linda, went through Code Academy, all of those, and just kind of like slowly figured it out, I guess. And then, I don't know, I guess as soon as I made my site, there's one friend that was like, oh, you can do websites, can you do my website? I was like, yeah, I'll do your website. It might take a few months, it might not be very good, but yeah, we'll figure it out. And then that website started. Then another friend comes along and is like, oh, you're the kid that does websites, can you do my website? I was like, yeah, all right. So then that kind of snowballs, and all of a sudden you're the mate who makes the websites, but still trying to get design work, and it all kind of jumbles up. But then I guess in that sense, once I kind of became slightly more competent, you kind of get to this position where you kind of in a jack of all trades position, not particularly good at any of it. And it's, I don't know, I think lately it's definitely been predominantly front-end development, but it's nice to be in a position where like there is space to kind of do any sort of work that comes in. I don't know.
Yeah, I like that story because I think I learned to code because of that same story. I think I had an idea for an app and I'm trying to build an app, and like you said, Daniel, like you didn't have no money to get anybody to build a site. And so the first thing I did was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna learn to code this site. And one of my co-founders, Rich was studying multimedia design at Brunel. It's not called digital design, but it had like this. It's called multimedia technology. It was some weird name. It was like some unattractive name for like a for a course. But they gave it to a digital designer, Brunel, and he was studying it, and he was like, yeah, he knows how to code. Yeah, I was like, all right, cool, Rich. Let's go. Let's make the bag. And his first website was so wild. It was so bad. It was not responsive. We didn't even know what responsive design was. Like all of those particular principles. I didn't even think half of the stuff on the site was clickable. But that was literally the first step. Like that story of like you saying like being known for being the person who makes websites. That was like also what I was known for. It's like this person who's made websites. And then I remember looking at the States and hearing this title, creative technologist, and I was like, you know, I don't know if I can see myself being a software engineer. You know, I ain't got the patience for it. But maybe the creative technologist title, it sounds attractive. How could I add that to my name? And like it was so cool. And like running around for like 2 years when nobody cared like who the heck is a creative technologist. And then all of a sudden one day someone's like, oh, we need creative technologists. And they're like, I heard of someone called Alex, and then I was like, well done, best choice I ever made. So it's that type of stuff.
Yeah, this is the thing. I mean, I think me and Riff, I don't think either of us have ever kind of officially worked full time in a kind of development agency. We both just kind of figured it out as we go along, and like Riff was saying, left a trail of furious clients in the wake of it. I don't know, it kind of because we've never kind of been formally taught best practices or had to work in an environment where kind of collaborative practices are key. I don't know, you get to a stage where like you kind of figure out what works for you and kind of run with it, and when we pass things back and forth we figure out what works for each other. But I think it puts you in a position where, although we've both been in a position before where like we've had to pass code on to, I guess, professional developers who've like opened up what we've done and been like, what the fuck is this? Like, what are these two playing at? Like, but at the same time, like what we do kind of works for our clientele. We've started saying like, we don't really make Bentley websites, we make Ford Fiesta websites with go faster stripes. Like from a programmer's perspective, they're probably horrendous, but like they're more on the kind of creative side. They might not work as fast, they might be a bit clunky, but they'll be more fun than some like award winning like I don't know.
I think as well for like our clients, we're kind of speaking about it earlier actually, we were saying like, because a lot of our clients come from like fashion and music kind of related like backgrounds. Often those things move so fast that like people in those industries just want someone who's like willing to like just experiment with something and like churn out something quickly, as opposed to something that's like a bit of the rough with the smooth, just so they can kind of get someone who's willing to actually like try and like experiment with something like 2 hours before the deadline, rather than someone who's like, no, it's not happening, it's a bad idea.
I think that's one thing I kind of because like from my studio perspective, we have a range of pieces of work where they're like one of the things we said our goal was to work with what we might identify as unglamorous companies, so companies who have done things like we some of our work last year was literally just to make this company that might consider themselves unglamorous to do something different. Like we worked with the Ada Lovelace Institute where they write like 60, 70, 80 page reports on like the ethical implications of technology. And then when it came to Ada Lovelace Day, they wanted something completely different than what they've ever done before. And we created like an interactive gamified experience on like getting people to go through the story of Ada Lovelace, understand how the first computer was made, look at some ethical implications of technology. And we had 6 days to do that. And that was like, I was like, damn, why am I doing this stuff? You know what I mean? Like, I had like this spreadsheet of like 100 bugs, or like, there was like things I needed to fix, and like, launch was at 8 a.m. in the morning because they had like, you know, this whole social media campaign and all these things. And like, it's like, I'm fixing stuff at like 7 a.m. in the morning. And those are like the things that I wanted us to like just talk about or like just have, because sometimes people see the polished thing and go, all right, cool, but nobody really sees that sometimes it can be like, you know, a struggle. It can be like, not everything's really perfect and smooth. But I would love you lot to also perhaps, I don't know if you have a slide deck of a project you want to show or something, but I would love for you lot to maybe just, you know, show us or like just show the class like just one project. And how you show your screen on here is that you see a cog next to the mic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and you can just click share your screen. So yeah, just.
Ooh.
Ooh, what should we show? What's online at the moment? What have we just done recently?
That's the what do you call it? I suppose the Burberry one I think's offline now.
Yeah, I checked that the other day actually. Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
Has anyone still got it on a...
Our one like fully collaborative thing where we're like playing pass the parcel and just like doing everything together. But then there's the Future Lab one we could show, which is kind of it was like our other kind of collaborative one, but we were kind of like it was like we both had a really distinct role within that. And there was still obviously like loads of merge errors on GitHub and stuff because we're both not used to coding with other people. And after that, pretty much we've like worked on stuff separately, but kind of under a joint name.
Yeah.
But wait, how do I do this?
So yeah, cog. Then you should be able to click share screen, and it should hopefully work.
So I think at some point I'm going to have to like enter my detail. Oh, sorry. System preferences.
Yeah, it's good. I don't know, like, I think working in fashion and music, it's like, they're two industries that are like constantly pushing to be on the absolute forefront of kind of social media and technology. So in that sense, like, it keeps you on your toes, but also because they are the erratic as a kind of area of working. Yeah, it's like it's good to try and find that balance between like what's healthy and what's healthy, what's fun. I think it's good. It's really fun.
Yeah. So, were you able to share your screen?
Hey.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Forecasting the future. Yeah. Ooh,
okay.
This is really cool.
So.
Future.
Oh. Right. Okay. Start here. So this one was kind of like a classic, like getting everything done at the last minute one as well, like we spoke about. And basically, it ended up with kind of we like worked with our mate Ash, who I live with, and he did sort of like he originally did like a lot of the 3D shapes, and it was kind of like all of us bashing our heads together and working out how to get these shapes to like move and transform into other shapes, and then it kind of panned out that like because I live with Ash and we were kind of like working together at home, I ended up kind of doing the 3D part, and then Dan ended up doing like all of the rest of the site, and then it was kind of us working out how to sort of slot these two sort of distinct parts of the site together, like with so it's like each sort of stage of the of this whole process. I'm just gonna do that.
Is the 3D shapes? Is that like animations in there, or is it like you wrote or you coded them?
So they're coded, so they're like all WebGL. Apart from that little disk that's in the middle of this one is the only one of Ash's we were able to use in the end, because it turned out that like all the files, he's like a 3D artist, and all the files he was exporting were like massive and making the site crash. But that's like the one thing we couldn't actually do in code. And then in the end, it was like, I'm sure there was a better way of doing this, but all the positions were kind of just like set to like timers and like linked up to the functions, which were kind of making the questionnaire thing progress. So it'd just be like me saying like, oh, rotate this thing at 90 degrees, and after this amount of time is up, turn it this way and make it there. So yeah, that was kind of fairly clunky the way it's done, but hopefully it doesn't look that clunky when you're looking at it.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like imposter syndrome in front end developing in that sense. Like you were saying earlier about always kind of being so strict on yourself, trying to write the perfect code for every project every time. Like when things go live, you're always like, fuck, is this actually any good? Because you've been staring at it for weeks on end. And I think it's nice to be able to take a step back and be like, oh wait, actually, like no one else is digging through the code, no one else cares. No
one else knows.
What we've done. I'm pleased.
And also, and sometimes, every so often, like someone does dig through the code. Like you'll work on a site for a client, and then you'll kind of get like an email from them, like, oh, like a fan tweeted us, and they said that this isn't working, and they've like screenshotted the code, and it's like, if they cared enough to like screenshot the code in the code inspector window, like you've probably done something well if they're like that interested. It's like people usually don't care, and when they do, it's like I hope it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. And I say to myself it's a good thing.
And how long on average are like your normal projects for? Like, like
it all kind of depends. I'd say
really depends.
Yeah, most projects we spend, I'd say 2/3 of the time kind of designing and conversing with the client and kind of figuring out where everything should go and how everything should function. And the actual build times, usually like a week, 2 weeks, something like that. Yeah, the longer we spend with the client, the more thorough you can be and kind of just crack it all out when it comes to coding.
I think, it's usually like all of the estimated time is kind of talking through the project and like being stuck in email chains, and then there's like a week or so extra time that you have to like slot in for contingency, and kind of that's when you do the actual work.
And like with you lot right now, you lot have been working together for almost a year, and you're still like alternatively freelancing on projects by yourself and then working together on things. And what have you lot learned about the business side of us trying to, of creativity? This is an area that I'm very interested in, is the business of creativity, because you can be creative in your bedroom, in your kitchen, but you want to like make a living out of this stuff, and you got to find somebody that's going to be like, hey, I'm going to pay you to do some pieces of work, and hopefully not make you like work overtime to deliver this to life, because but I don't know, like what have you lot learned about the business of creativity in this like period?
Ooh.
I guess it's more about how you value your own time and how you value yourself and your work, and kind of not undervaluing yourself. I think there's been a lot of kind of learning from mistakes with kind of contracts and client expectations and things like that, and how not to get fucked over by a million rounds of amends when something's already been signed off, things like that. I guess I think all of it has been very trial and error, but hopefully we're getting there now. Still definitely got a long way to go. I don't think it's nearly half of it.
The sort of admin side of things we haven't worked out at all. We bought the company name, we set up a business account, and we're like, that's about as far as we've got with it. That's all kind of a bit pie in the sky still. But then I think a lot of it's kind of working out whether a job's worth taking on, because I think as creative developers, especially at the moment, there's like always an endless list of people who want you to build a website, and a lot of them, it's kind of like you were both saying earlier, it's like a lot of people just be like, oh, you're the website guy, cool, like we need a website, before actually like finding out what it is you do. So I think it's like, it's really important to kind of get an idea of like if a client's a good match for you, because if they're not and you kind of take on that job, that will kind of impact negatively on other work you're doing. But if you just take on like clients who are like, if you're like, you know, like it's a really lucky position to be in, and I'm kind of denying that, but if you're in a position to like be overloaded with work at all, I think it's just working out like who the best clients for you are, and then you're able to kind of like give them like the amount of time that they've kind of like paid you for, rather than sort of rushing loads of different jobs at once. And that's kind of something that's like I definitely haven't tackled yet, but it's kind of ongoing, and I'm trying to get my head around it still.
And how did both of you look after your mental health? Because one of the things about in this bag that we're in, where everything's so fast, and you know, sometimes you know clients maybe don't understand the mental effort it can take into delivering these pieces of work. And as we are obviously grateful that people want to hire us and want us to, you know, deliver these pieces of work, but how do you not take steps to look after your mental health? Like how you know, how's that?
I think it's a lot of it's just the case. I definitely was the absolute worst for it. Like the beginning of this year, towards the end of last year, just like getting to the studio at some ridiculously early hour, not leaving until some stupidly late hour, just for the sake of kind of getting as much work done as possible, as fast as possible, so keep everyone happy on emails and stuff like that. But I think there comes a time when like you physically have to take a step back and be like, look, well, like working in music and fashion, if I don't respond to this email, no one's going to die. It's going to be fine. You need to like go to bed, take some time for yourself. I don't know, go out, go for a run or something. Like everything will still be there when you get back. Like it's not that deep. You might have an idea, but it's fine. You can,
Totally. A few years ago, I had like a bit of a breakdown, which kind of led me to having like a month off work. So I just like my anxiety was so high, I just like couldn't like focus on anything, and I ended up not going in and kind of taking a month off. But what triggered it off was kind of doing 2 all-nighters in a row for this one client who was really difficult. I think like now I still slip into that pattern of like working until like 3 in the morning or something, but I think I'm like better at being like, okay, there's a cut-off point, like the deadline hasn't been met, but like that's fine. If I try and like push through and meet the deadline, I'll be like running on empty, and also kind of won't give them like decent quality work anyway. So like you've just got to that's like a point where you've just got to like step away from the computer and like go to sleep, or like go for a run, or leave it for a little bit.
There's definitely like some of it is like client management as well. Like I think inherently a client will always be like, yeah, we want it now, can you do it right now? And you like get carried away, like yeah, we'll do it right now, when actually like there's not a fucking chance you can do it right now. They're gonna be sat there in a week like, hang on a minute, where the fuck is it? Like I think we've both in the past gotten into the habit of being like saying yes to everything that comes in, and then kind of only doing the work who's crying loudest on email, and then a few days later someone else will pipe up like, where's everything you promised a week ago? And they go, okay, do that work, and then someone else pipes up. It's just a case of just like managing expectations, being like, no, actually we can't do that right now, but if you wouldn't mind waiting a few days, we could do it much better.
And how are you dealing with this period of time now? Especially, I know for me that working at home, I never liked working at home, so I always had a studio because of separation works for me, because I'm aware that I have a tendency to be a workaholic and overwork, and sometimes and right now I've been struggling in terms of that aspect of starting my day at 9, leaving my computer at like 12, and like and like this last couple of days this week I've been trying to change that, like by like, okay, I'm touching my computer, I'm not touching it again. Yes, I have loads of work to do, but I can come back to it the next day, and that type of stuff. I don't know how you lot managing that now in this period.
Not great, but I suppose like before the whole lockdown thing started, I'd kind of started working from home most of the time anyway. And then two of my housemates, who one is Ash and then the other one is Jess, who does like a lot of graphic design for us. They were working at home as well quite a lot, so it's kind of, for us three, it's kind of like stayed the same. And then but I think we all have a tendency to kind of like egg each other on, or like talk about work outside of like work hours.
This I'm currently doing intern interviews at the moment, so that's like an interesting. Yeah, we have an opportunity to hire somebody for a month, but yeah, I think we're back live now. So the question I did ask was literally about, I'm not sure where we cut off, but I might skip that question about how you lot are handling working from home. Actually, I'll ask a different question related to working from home. So in this aspect of, obviously, with the pandemic and stuff, and there's obviously been a lot of fears about people losing work and stuff. How are you lot navigating this situation?
It's kind of weird. It's kind of like, what do they call it? Like survivor syndrome or something.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Oh my god!
Like, I think there's so many of our like kind of peers in the creative industry who are completely fucked for work. Everyone's really struggling, and at the same time, Riff and I,
especially with fashion and music as well.
Yeah, it's like, it's quite like, I don't know. I think the whole it seems the whole world's trying to build a website at the moment, and Riff and I have kind of become sounding boards for everyone's like sideline projects. They've now got the time to dig out again.
Yeah,
it's kind of really awful to be gripey about it.
I feel like, it feels a little bit like biting the hand that feeds a lot of the time, because people are like, so I've had an idea, like, you don't even have to reply, you're probably really busy, and I'm like, I'm really busy and I probably won't reply for 2 days.
Yeah,
and then it's gonna be a no.
And like, and like, how do you lot communicate your work? Like, because I know that DxR Zone doesn't have a website yet online, because I checked.
Soon.
Riff's page is like a one pager of like herself. I know, Daniel, you have like I think you have more projects on your website, but like, how do you lot communicate about your work, and how do people sort of find you and this type of stuff?
I think it's quite a lot of word of mouth, to be honest. It's like every client sort of has like a few other connections, and like, I don't know, like obviously not all the time, but quite a lot of the time, like they'll kind of be like, oh yeah, by the way, like we told like this friend of ours who needs this other thing doing. So yeah, a lot of it's just kind of that way. And then I suppose like at the moment with DxR Zone, we'll get like, either of us will get like an email or something, and then we'll be like, oh yeah, by the way, we're actually part of a studio, so I'm just going to loop in my creative partner on this. So that's the aim, is to get a website up fairly soon, so we can stop doing that whole like, oh by the way spiel. But yeah, for the time being, it's kind of just been that.
Okay, cool. And what is my final? I think my final question is, I don't know, what would you, if you had any advice to give to a student, like one of my students who are in this interesting place of life where they are thinking about, I've kind of had this conversation about getting them to think about their next steps, not being like your next step has to be this permanent thing. It doesn't have to be like, I'm going to be this person or that type of stuff, but just getting them to begin to think about how they would exist outside the four walls of university, or outside that, you know, the protective bubble of university and existing in the real world, where, you know, you got to make, you know, we always got to pay our bills, but now paying our bills out of uni just feels like a different type of intensity, and like how, you know, they can somehow, because that's what a lot of my students are asking me this period of time is, especially where they have multiple interests, they have many interests, how could they find their own feet in the industry, and or like, yeah, in that way. I don't know if from you lot's learnings, if you don't have anything that could possibly be shared.
I think, like, I don't know, I remember leaving uni and thinking, like, being like terrified that I had to kind of carve out what kind of pigeonhole of the creative industry I wanted to work in, and like wanted to be in design and not really knowing what to do with the rest of it. But I think especially in this day and age, like, it's absolutely fine to do a bit of absolutely everything. Like, like you don't have to narrow yourself into like one corner, one certain creative practice. Like, if everything you kind of learn and experiment with and fuck around with will inevitably then inform work in different areas later on and kind of push things further. I think, yeah, I don't know, like the more you can experiment, the more you know, the better the work will be in whatever kind of area it's in.
Yeah,
yeah, totally. I think a lot of the time as well, like, especially as someone who hasn't come from like a computer science background, I get, like, I think both of us kind of get a bit like, oh my god, like, we don't know enough about that thing, we're not a specialist in that thing. But actually there's like a lot to be said for kind of sitting between disciplines, because all the people working in like those different areas need someone to kind of bridge that gap and communicate. So if you can kind of like sort of sit across like a few different kind of disciplines, you're actually like a really useful person to have around. And also, I guess, like, as well as like not trying to specialize in something just because you think like you have to, it's often like the projects that I do for fun that are just like, that I think are stupid but I've like enjoyed doing them, that kind of end up being the ones that people like latch onto. And then all the big kind of like mental struggle projects where you've kind of like done something because you feel like you need to prove something to yourself or someone else, like those are often like the ones that don't actually kind of get you any other work so much as just like the fun little silly micro site, stuff like that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I really love that. I feel like we gotta make this title the title of the talk. I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I was thinking in my mind with the imposter syndrome at the intersection of art and technology. That's an interesting title. But
Server Errors and Where to Find Them by J.K. Rowling.
I hope this email finds you well in these uncertain times.
You know, but I'm really so grateful for both of you two's time. I hope that once we're allowed in person, and I hope that we definitely do have a drink and like, you know, and like just definitely talk more stuff. How could the students find out more about your work? I know you two have like really lovely Instagram profiles. I'm not sure if Dan's both of you are both on Instagram. So
that's pretty much it. Just Instagram. Yeah. That's where we both kind of push everything.
So what's your Instagram so that everybody can like check you lot out?
You know what? I forget what the handle is. Let me check. There's like a work one and a personal one. I always forget which one's which.
Oh wait,
Daniel _. Yeah. Where is it?
So you say it's Daniel.Barra _. Okay, perfect.
Beautiful. Oh wait, I'm gonna do that. That's a good idea.
Perfect.
Oh, hello. Knows me. Okay. Oh no. Shoot, what have I done? Oh gosh. Hang on, technical difficulties. Oh, can you see me? There I am.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, cool. That's a good one. That was a good one. That was clear. But yeah, thank you so much for your I really appreciate it. And yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us.